What's up, everybody? I'm Jon Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, let's do a little mailbag. At Jon Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered on the show. Let's start with Austin. Just watch Colin say he hated the 49ers draft. Implied Kyle has too much say, which could be true in the past, but this draft has Robert Saleh written all over it. Some reaches, but loved it. Let's be real. We've always had shitty O-lines. Now, we should be able to stop the run. Colin's funny. He finally criticizes Kyle, but for something that seems wrong. What do you think? I talked to a buddy in the NFL who's got a couple rings and is a high up executive, and said he was listening to the podcast and he heard me discussing coaches, the difference between coaches and scouts when it comes to drafting, and basically the difference of these organizations whose GMs run the draft. And, Veach runs the Chiefs draft. And he has since he's been the GM, just like John Dorsey did before. Andy Reid does not run the draft. Howie Roseman runs the Eagles draft. Brad Holmes now runs the Lions draft. With the 49ers, not that John Lynch and the scouts don't do all the work for the draft, but Kyle's in charge. Kyle's the boss. And he described it to me like this, and I'd never thought about it this way. He said, the difference between a coach and like a GM, scout executive, the way they view players, is coaches are going to be naturally pessimistic because they view it through two lenses. One, they view the draft like a depth chart. Does this guy fill the need in my depth chart? And obviously the 49ers had lots of needs because they cut and let a bunch of people walk. And they also view people through a glass half empty lens. I got to work on his feet. I got to improve his route running. I got to work on his X, Y, and Z, where usually scouting eyes are much more, well, he can do this. These are the positives, right? Doesn't mean that scouts can't be negative. But I do think the first part about how they look through the draft as a depth chart, the 49ers, listen, Mykel Williams, the guy they drafted at pick 11, he's a top 15 pick in any draft. He's a blue chipper from Georgia that is 6'5", that is 270 plus pounds, who's 20 years old, who has awesome off the field intangibles character. He's going high in any freaking draft. No one I have talked to, and most of my friends did not like their draft, has any issue with that pick. I would say his approval rating is really high. There are countless examples of people that fit his measurables that don't just succeed, that kick serious ass in the NFL in the history of the sport. So no one has an issue with that. I think as you go, you went the second round guy from Texas. People weren't that high on him. Not that he's not a draftable player or couldn't, but people thought the second round was insane. Now the 49ers value run, playing the run a lot and physicality. But that is a pick that a GM probably wouldn't have made. That's a coach pick because they go plug and play. And I think there are guys, and here's the thing with the offensive line. I'm with you. Like, beside Trent Williams, which is one of the lucky's the wrong way to put it because he demanded basically to go to Kyle. So, like, their relationship was the reason, and you get credit for developing relationships with players. But, like, that situation is they traded a third-round pick for Trent Williams. I mean, what are we talking? That's never happening again. They just don't draft. Like, they've gone on the record and said, and this is, I adamantly disagree with this, that they value skill guys more than the offensive line. Their offensive line coach said that. Guys that score touchdowns. I'm like, I'm sorry, I disagree with that. Now, I was taught, and I learned in the NFL, even college football, Pat Hill, offensive line coach for Belichick. The amount of Fresno State offensive linemen that had success in the NFL beside Logan Mankins is pretty high. Hell, when I was there, Kenny Wiggins Played like 8, 9 years in the NFL as an undrafted free agent. Ryan Wendell, who left right before I got there, started on a Super Bowl team and is the Rams offensive line coach. And then obviously going to Andy Reid, the reason that Pat Hill knew Andy Reid because he recruited him to play offensive line at Utah, and Andy ended up going to BYU. Big guys fucking matter. They really do. And the 49ers think that they can get around that. Now, they value the defensive line, which I respect, which is I'm not going to totally crush them for drafting a guy 6'5", 340 pounds from Texas. But I do understand, like, Kyle's going to view the draft Belichick did at the end. He just Cole Strange, plug and play guard. It's like, bro, you do not need to draft this guy in the first round. You get him in the third. If it wasn't for McVay and Les Snead not having a first round pick and probably having a few cocktails, they let the world know. Like, yeah, we had that guy in the fourth. It's like, well, no shit. No one needed to draft him there because Belichick just saw a depth chart. I need a guard. That's how coaches see it. So I think it's complicated. Now, the thing that I will push back against is no one knows anything. I mean, there are drafts that are going to get A's that are going to suck, and Mel Kiper gave the Cleveland Browns an A+. It's like no one drafts a quarterback in the third and the fifth round. That's insane. Heard some different things today on Shador, but I'm a little Shadored out. Question for the mailbag. How would you make sense of the Saints passing up on quarterbacks with more recognizable names and end up taking Shough, who wasn't talked about much up until like the last couple weeks of the draft? I believe he nailed the interview, not even mad at the pick, but they just want to fill in until next year's draft, but no one seems to be talking about him moving up past Gabriel, Sanders, Ewers, or Howard. Thanks for the daily content. It's a good question. I do think Tyler Shough was someone discussed in the draft circles and definitely during the fall pretty highly. Now, second round, probably not, but I mean, he was pretty clearly by midseason going to go in the top 100-ish picks, 125-ish picks. So he was going to go early fourth round, third round. So to take him at the top of the second round, you know where I stand. I think it's crazy. Old player, huge mental advantage in college when you've been in these. It's not even fair. I mean, the dude was Herbert's backup for 2 years. But I do think it's hard to play the game of, well, it's just for next year. It's one thing to load up like having 2 first-round picks like the Rams or the Browns. Like that's a tangible thing. But you could suck and still be drafting like ninth. So I think you just never know. I don't think coaches and front offices look at it that way. If you're going to draft a guy in the second round, you like him. And I also wonder if they think this Derek Carr situation's gotten really weird. The NBA 82-game grind is done. And now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw-dropping plays. Can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in games all the way through the finals. Now, the time to back your favorite players and teams as they chase glory. All season long, DraftKings has been your go-to spot for NBA player props. And that doesn't stop now. Want to make your playoff experience even more intense? Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will Curry drop 30? Will LeBron drop 40? Or more? It's your call. Ready to place your first bet? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, lock in your bets, and let's make the playoff run unforgettable. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Question for the pod. Who are your division winners for next season? I'm not trying to kick your question to the curb here, but I haven't even. We just got through the draft. It's hard for me to. We're not a television show here. I'm not playing that game quite yet because honestly, it honestly hasn't crossed my mind. And for most of the divisions, like I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Like you'd have to be on drugs to pick against the Bills. I think the Eagles have the best roster in the NFL. So Eagles, like Bills, Eagles, easy pick. It'd be hard for me to pick against the Ravens. This is just off the top of my head. Maybe I'll go a little counter. I'll go Packers. But I mean, all those teams are going to be good. I think the 49ers are going to be better than you think, but Probably be safe to pick the Rams. I mean, you'd have to be, a Market Street crackhead in San Francisco to pick against the Chiefs. I mean, they rattle off the division every single year. Now it's going to get more difficult, but until someone beats them, you're crazy to pick against them. Though I do think it's going to be more competitive. As a Jets fan, I don't even know. I'm just stopping there. The Bucks too. Nothing but respect to my guy Jason Light. Guy's a fucking winner. As a Jets fan, I can remember the last offseason where we had. I can't remember the last offseason where we had have been talked about less in the past decade. I see other fan bases upset not enough people are talking about them and can't help but wonder if I am right to enjoy being away from the spotlight, mostly, or if I should take it as a sign we aren't going to be any good. Uh, I, I think the last couple years were pretty unique with Aaron. I mean, that just vaults you to the top of the conversation. You drafted Zach Wilson number 2. I mean, you've had some just kind of unique talking point circumstances. So I think it's a positive being a little quieter. Though you do have a talented roster, I don't think you're going to be that great next year. Would probably be my guess. If I was a betting man, that would be one team. Your team on paper, I like is more than the Dolphins. Obviously, Tua is a better player than Fields, but can he stay healthy? Time will tell. I have a loaded question. This is from Patrick. Why do you feel that people think the NFL is rigged? I don't, but I find myself in so many conversations with people who think that players are actors. It was especially bad this year when the Chiefs were winning all those close games. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I would guess it's a screenshot so I can't see Patrick's face. That a lot of that you're a younger person, so a lot of your friends are online a lot. It's a big online conversation. And if any of your young friends are in fantasy or gamble and have been screwed in situations, you think that it can take on a life of its own. Uh, there is no disputing this is the number one television show in America. And when you just say that out loud, the number one television show in America, you think scripted TV. Hell, even the number two television shows in America, which, it's dipping hardcore, has historically been news. I think a lot of people think that's pretty fraudulent. So, and obviously just television shows and reality TV show. Think about this reality TV, which really came to light, in my youth. I mean, Real World, I'm pretty sure it was the first reality show or the first big reality show. I'm sure there were others. And then the world of reality television took off over the last 20 plus years. But I think we all acknowledge, and even sometimes I have to look at Maria. It's like, that this conversation isn't just randomly happening. They're not just sitting having cocktails, just going immediately into their relationships. And that question that human being asked that other person, you would never say it like that. This is not real. The difference is, like, having worked in the NFL, it would be impossible to create. Think about the movies with sports, right? When you watch I'm watching that show on Netflix with Josh Duhamel and Minka Kelly, who's just, I mean, still a babe in her mid 40s. But you go back to Friday Night Lights and you go back to just all the football movies historically, right? From Rudy to the program. Program actually had some decent scenes of football, but it's very, very difficult to get really good action live in football because it's hard to script guys going full speed, tackling. So like you could manipulate a play or two, but you couldn't create the actors to do this, no matter how good of athletes they are, which they're obviously great. But can leagues manipulate stuff? For sure. Now, the difference I would say is this. Let's use the NBA and baseball, who, if they get the right teams, like if you got the Warriors against the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, it would be the highest rated basketball series in a decade because it's the two biggest brands, the two biggest brands as players. The Lakers are the biggest brand. I think the Warriors in a short period of time have vaulted up to basically two or three, and it would be enormous. The NFL doesn't need that. Like the NFL does not need the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys to be in the NFC Championship. They could easily do the Lions against the Seahawks, and 50 million people would watch. What was the AFC Championship last year? The Bills and the Chiefs. which I think it's been that game twice in the last 5 years. They are not dependent on markets. The reason the World Series last year was way bigger than the NBA Finals because it was the Dodgers and the Yankees. I mean, the NFL is not dependent at this point in time on markets, which is pretty rare. So I think that certain things just catch a life on their own, and I think we have recent history of conspiracy theories becoming reality. There's no disputing that, and I think that word is like kind of overused nowadays. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a conversation that's going to die. I wanted to get your opinion on the Patriots draft and what you think the ceiling is for Drake Maye. I have seen one. I think his ceiling's pretty high. Uh, he's he's got a chance to be pretty good. Now, we talk a lot about this. So I'd say the same thing with Caleb Williams. There's a big difference between physical traits and then doing it. A lot of every quarterback in the NFL who's a starter or a backup, if you get them in a room and they're talking football, you'd be blown away. If you just sat Kenny Pickett down with Josh Allen and we just had Brian Dayball, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, and they were all just talking football, the level of conversation would be really impressive. But once you go on the field, even if Kenny Pickett knows the same amount of football as Justin Herbert or Josh Allen, it doesn't mean then he can execute and play as fast as those guys, right? So like Drake Maye and Caleb Williams, their talent's immense. Now doing it when there's pressure. The other thing is if you're a good team, there's pressure on you to win every week. When you suck, I'm sorry, it's just not the same. Honestly, teams don't take you as seriously in November and December. We're human beings. But I have seen a lot of clips on Will Campbell. There is validity to arm length. It matters. He's really impressive, and I understand why Vrabel really really likes him. Easy guy to like. So I think he'll be good. I mean I now Trent Williams, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Tristan Wirfs. Like, is he going to be some All Pro? I don't know, but watching him talk and clearly playing at LSU all those years, I don't see how he's not a solid starter for a long time. Like All Pro, Pro Bowl, you never know. But I think the Patriots got to feel pretty good about that pick. I don't think he'll be overwhelmed. The running back from Ohio State, I mean, pretty special talent. I saw Bruce Feldman, who college covers football as well as anybody, and is dialed in, especially with the top programs, the Ryan Days, the Sarks, the Harbaughs, the Kirbys. Like this guy, Lincoln, Dan Lanning, he knows his shit. He's like, I would not be surprised. And this guy's been covering college football for decades. If Trayvon Henderson's the best running back out of the group, I mean, after his freshman year, you might even be able to say rookie now that these guys are all getting paid. I've seen a lot of guys say this around college football. You could argue like this guy's going to be a top 10 pick. He looked like an absolute freak show. And then, they end up signing another running back. The offense changed a little bit, but you have that level of speed. He's got a chance to be just a big time game breaker. And when's the last time the Patriots, they've had, a lot of over the Belichick run versatile running backs, right? Dion Lewis, they had Falk. I'm trying to think of my guy from Cal Berkeley, running back. I played golf with him. He was a cool guy. His name Shane Vereen. I played Olympic Club with Shane Vereen. Didn't quite know where the ball was going, but he had some serious power. Awesome guy. He was telling awesome stories. But like they've had a lot of versatile guys. They could run in the open field. I think Shane Vereen actually works for the Texans now in the personnel department. Cool dude. I don't know if they've ever quite had like this. I mean, this guy's got legit breakaway speed. I didn't know much about, and I'm a West Coast college football guy. This Kyle Williams, wide receiver from Washington State. I didn't love the wide receiver they drafted last year, Polk. I thought the the Bucks who drafted McMillan, who was the third wide receiver from Washington, I thought he was a better player. Obviously, Rome was the top dog, but clearly Vrabel is coming in. So They draft basically three guys on offense in the first 69 picks. I don't know this offensive lineman from Georgia. It's funny. I was talking to someone about this, a buddy of mine in the league. I was like, you know what's funny is I thought Georgia's offensive line sucked. And on the second day, like multiple interior offensive linemen came off the board. But I'm not going to pretend to like break down this Georgia guy. But I will say this: their first two picks, hard not to really like. I'd be pretty excited if I was a Patriots fan right now. I mean, I'd be thinking playoffs. How do you think the Packers did with their draft? Well, one thing's pretty clear is these wide receivers are on notice. And some of them, it's not their fault, right? Watson, who was, in a weird way, you could say he was underachieving. He just couldn't stay healthy. Hamstrings were always pulling the first couple years. Now he tears his ACL. Romeo's getting concussions left and right. Uh, but you draft Golden really high, who's a stud. They drafted another wide receiver in the third round. This tackle they took from North Carolina State. I mean, they've drafted well. Their offensive line's been good forever, so I'd be bullish on that pick. But I mean, they draft two wide receivers with their first three picks. So I mean, those guys. I mean, Golden's 100% playing, and I think the other guy got a from TCU's got a very very good chance to play. So I would say that they tell you everything that they need. Like we need more explosion on offense because their offensive line is going to be good, and they drafted last year the tackle from Arizona in the first round. So they've drafted two tackles high the last couple of years, and they've invested a lot in this wide receiver room. I think that I'm going to pick again. The Packers won 11 games last year and won one divisional game. I think I'm going to pick the Packers to win the division. With the NFL draft, how do GMs go about weighing position availability into their draft decision and big board? For example, if this past draft, the Raiders needed an offensive tackle and running back, objectively, Genty is better at his position than Membu, but this draft was really deep at running back. So they could pick up Membu in round one and Henderson in round two. Then the combo Membu and Henderson is a better option than Genty in a steep drop off. I think there's a fine balance. And this is where I think coaches, I think if you really need a tackle, I think a coach is more likely to take an offensive lineman right there. And I think if the and also offensive or team philosophies. Now, I think where Spytek and Pete Carroll would tell you that we just had Genty rated a lot higher than Membu. So we just stick with the philosophy of take the best player on the board. My issue with Genty is the whole time. People think I'm like a Genty hater. Google some of my tweets from the season. I freaking love the guy. I mean, it's one of the coolest stories in recent memory in college football. But I'm with you. Like, wait, I can get one of the Ohio State running backs in the second round. Hell, I could get three or four legit starters in the third round. Are there other positions here that I could take that I think are more difficult to get in the later rounds? I will never fault anybody, even if they miss on the player, for taking an offensive lineman high. Again, you could miss on any player. Like Joe Douglas, the Mekhi Becton thing blew up in his face. I do not fault him at all for making that pick. And I think if you're in that position, you make that pick every time. Like that philosophy, that idea. But I think in this situation, my guess would be that Spytek would tell you Membu a little bit of a late riser. Taking a guy that we think has a chance to be a Pro Bowler over you know, uh, some question marks with Membu, like a lot of talent, but who knows? I mean, it's a little boom or bust. I think would imagine some people would tell you in the league, um, because just his physical attributes, you would say, well, why wouldn't Vrabel have just taken him? I listen to you literally every single day. However, you got to chill on your anti Big 12 agenda. The best player in the league played in the Big 12. They had some 30 some draft picks this year and two picks in the top 10. Obviously, their high end talent is not the same as the SEC or the Big 10. But calling them an embarrassment is overstating it big time. Love your content, agree with 90%, but the way you talk about the Big 12 is way off. They had 30 players drafted. The Big 10 had 73. And you say that you had two guys, two picks in the top 10. Those guys weren't Big 12 players. Travis Hunter, he played in the Pac-10 last year. Ted McMillan also, I mean, Arizona's a Pac-10 school. The realignment, you just got those two guys. You, I'm not anti the Big 12. I'm not anti any of these conferences. Your conference is not viewed very highly relative to those big conferences. Not even close. But like claiming McMillan and Travis Hunter as like lifetime Big 12 guys seems a little rich. Your defensive talent is awful. Yeah, I mean, it really is. And it always has been. And now that Oklahoma and Texas are gone, you're going to be in trouble. I'm not anti any of these. I don't care. I didn't go to any of these schools. But you got to be able to call a spade a spade. The Big 12 is easily the of the top the Power Four conferences. Now the Pac-12's dead, is the fourth, and I think there's a clear drop off with them. So again, I not even my opinion. The numbers speak for themselves. If you combine the Big 10, or excuse me, the Big 12 and the ACC, you guys had less draft picks than the SEC. The SEC had 79 guys drafted, the Big 10 71. You guys had 31. The Big 10 had 40 more players than you. Just not a great football conference now. Great basketball conference. And again, none of this stuff. There are a couple agendas here and there. Hate the Lakers. Not a huge Chip Kelly guy. Um, I used to not, I think I just, everyone loves Sark, and I thought he was pretty overrated. I've come around. I'm pro Sarkeesian. So if I got an agenda, I'll tell you. Hey, couldn't stand Brandon Staley. But for the most part, like, there's no emotion here. I'm an Oklahoma guy. I watched a lot of Big 12 football over the last decade plus. What are your thoughts on the Cardinals drafting Will Johnson? He took a pretty big fall because of perceived knee issues like Miles Jack. I've heard different things about the pre-existing injury in terms of what it actually is. Do you think it's a good fit, and how do you feel about his future? I'm a big Will Johnson guy. I mean, I thought 2 years ago most would have considered him the best player on Michigan's team, the best player. And early on this season, I remember like second game of the season, he had a pick six against Fresno State to ice the game. He like Byron Murphy several years ago from Washington. You're like, this guy's just a natural corner. Now, the things I've heard negatively about him, he didn't run. It's like, why doesn't he run? Well, he's not that fast, right? He's not some 4.3, low 4.4 guy. A lot of people think he's like low 4.5s, mid 4.5s. There's some questions with his knees, and they don't think he's super fast. So naturally, he's going to get fall down a little bit. And then when people question his knees, I think he's a natural. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know whether his knees are going to hold up, whether they're not going to hold up. If they do hold up, if you just tell me he does not have like a chronic knee issue, right? Which, again, I have no clue. But if we remove that and say that's not going to exist, he's just going to be like any other player. He could get hurt or he couldn't. If he's healthy, I think he's going to be a really good NFL player. Why? Because he is an extremely talented player. So I love that pick. Is there better content right now than the daily swag unboxing by Gruden? Guy was built for entertainment. Totally agree. This is why I'm always critical when these guys get hired. The Matt Ryans, the Drew Breeses. It's like these guys are great players, high character guys, just good dudes, just high level cats. They're not, they're in the entertainment industry because they were great players. They're not entertaining, right? And it's what Brady struggled with. It's like, Tom Brady's a legend because he's got all these Super Bowls and he's got one of the greatest athletic careers in the history of civilization. That doesn't mean he's entertaining. Like, it's hard to entertain. It really is. And it's a skill. Some guys have it. Gruden has it in spades. He has a unique personality. When he's on camera, you're just going to gravitate toward him, even when he's doing dumb shit. I'm 100% with you. If he doesn't get a coaching job next year, I guess they don't need him because of Troy Aikman, but he should get back on TV. He's just too good. Good hire by Portnoy. He's just a unique talent. With Seattle taking Milroe, what do you think his timetable is? Obviously, we took him sort of draft and stash, let him learn behind Darnold. Is it realistic that he wins the job this year itself? Is it also realistic that he never becomes more than a Taysom Hill type player? I guess I'm trying to get your opinion on the fit. Well, you guys is Drew Lock back on the team too? Because if he is, I mean, I think that Jalen Milroe is, yeah. So is Drew Lock. I think Jalen Milroe, more than likely, if I was a betting man right now, is going to be the third string quarterback. And I think what would make him unique is I think he'd be the third string quarterback and he might dress and they might give him some packages. I think unless he's a complete disaster, which I don't see how he's going to be because he already knows the offense because he worked with Kubiak with the 49ers. Absolutely no circumstance in which it's even possible for him to beat out Darnold. One, they just gave basically guaranteed Darnold $55 million. So this is not one of those situations where it's like he's unless he is just like Lamar Jackson immediately, which he's not. I do think over the course of a year, if he can improve his accuracy and Sam Darnold does not live up to what he was in Minnesota, things could change. Things could change fast. So I would say that I bet he plays this year because he brings a running element, a little bit like when they went with Russell Wilson last year and Fields would occasionally come in for some runs. They will do that with Jalen Milroe. And let's face it, like if I like you enough to take you in the third round as a quarterback, like I like you. That's what the whole thing with Shador and Dylan Gabriel. Like they like Dylan Gabriel. Like that wasn't just like it's a value pick. No, if I'm taking a quarterback in the third round, like I like the player. Now it doesn't mean we've seen a lot of third round quarterbacks become irrelevant, but I think that they are very, very intrigued with Jalen Milroe. This year, expectations would be pretty small. I think by year two, like, how does he look in the preseason? Because if he's coming on, it's like, well, keep an eye. Especially, you know what will tell you a lot is next season, is obviously it depends what Sam Darnold does, but is he just the backup quarterback? What do you think the Chiefs draft? I love the show, and I would like to hear your opinion. Um, Let me pull that bad boy up really quick. I would say their first pick, I've talked to a couple people, and I would tend to agree that if he was fully healthy, if he hadn't got hurt at the end of the season, I mean, I think he's a lock top 10 pick, and I think he would have been in the discussion depending on how the offseason went for the number one tackle off the board. Now, they got a guy who's injured, and, I think maturity, you could probably use that on a lot of guys. Just some things that, they're going to have to work on like most young players, but the talent is for a team that needed offensive linemen, especially tackles, to get that guy at the end of the first round. I think they were had to be pretty excited about that. The Mo Norman kid, the pass rusher, heard he's a little crazy, but there is no disputing he is he's got some shit to him. So again, one advantage you have when you have Andy Reid and Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones and McDuffie and all these high level guys, like you can take some players that other teams are scared off of. Like no one disputes any of these guys' talent. And the Chiefs are good at that. And then you just mold them in. And then you have two options. You fit in or you fit out. Because the Chiefs can't make a draft pick where if the guy's not good, no one gives a fuck. It's the Chiefs. We're going to win 12 games minimum, right? We're in the playoffs no matter what. So it's like if we whiff on you, great. That's your problem. Because we've proven like guys can play. Um, they went pretty heavy on defense. Louisville, this Cal DB. Cal had a couple DBs drafted. One thing you get, Wilcox, good defensive coach in at Cal. I think the key to their team next year is going to be can their tackle position be better? And, what's Rice's situation coming off the injury? Can Xavier Worthy take the next step? Did they draft a running back? They took the SMU kid at the end of the seventh. I guess Pacheco's still on the team. Top two picks, really talented. Given the available options at our draft slot, I think we got really great value. This is the Chargers fan. Looking at our roster on paper, I really don't see any reason we can't seriously push the Chiefs. O line could be top three unit in the NFL. Two excellent backs, way more weapons in the passing game. Feels like we got as many as five guys in our draft class that could start. Not making guarantees, but I think we're going to take this thing from KC. On paper, it looks like we have a good shot. What do you think? I saw a picture, and again, it's hard to tell with the angle, right? Because I've stood next to Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is big. Now, he's clearly, I would say, changed his diet over the course of the last 6, 7 years. He's more slender. But a Marion Hampton, who was right next to him, made him look small. I'm trying to bring up his measurements. I think Marion Hampton is basically 6 foot, 225 pounds. He's a beast. I mean, he's been really good. So I mean, I think if that guy, like you said, your offensive line's good. The Harbaugh philosophy is pretty evident. He wants to run the ball down your throat. So he gets Najee Harris, a physical running back, who's not as talented as this guy. And you get Hampton. Like to me, Hampton, Najee because he's a little older and been a starter, like obviously starts as the starter. Hampton's the more talented player. But like if you tell me Najee Harris, your backup running behind Hampton, like shove that down. I mean, they are going to run the ball at will on people, especially behind their two tackles. And let's face it, like his defensive coordinator might be the next Mike McDonald, who went through that system in Baltimore, super high level guy, really smart, and obviously a really, really good coach. I think the question mark's going to be they kept Khalil Mack, who's still solid. Uh, you know, defensively, like if Derwin James stays healthy, they drafted defensive guys last year. I think you guys are going to be pretty good. I think you're going to be pretty good. And the Chiefs won a lot of games last year on the margins. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Andy'd be the first to tell you they pulled some games out of their ass. I mean, that Denver game was lost until they won it. I think they had a Raider game that was similar too. So listen, I mean, you guys, what was your record this year? 12-5, 11-6. So you went 11-6. You already were good in the division. I mean, you went 4-2. Yeah, can you get that to 12 or 13? Obviously, the playoff thing's got to leave a bad taste in your mouth. You lost to the Chiefs twice, but you played them well. I mean, you lost 19-17 and 17-10. You beat the Broncos twice, beat the Raiders. So basically, the Chiefs swept you. You beat everyone else. I'd be pretty bullish. Now, your schedule last year was a little easy. Patriots, you got blown out by the Bucks, Falcons, lost to the Ravens, beat the Bengals. That's a nice win. Titans, Saints, Cardinals, which you lost. Yeah, I'd feel pretty good if I were you guys. Win the division. Like I said, I'm never picking the Chiefs to lose the division until they do it, but I think the Broncos and the Chargers are both going to be really good this year.